Hey warriors, picture this. You're lying in bed staring at the ceiling. The room is dark, but your mind is blazing with light, replaying every awkward moment from today, rehearsing conversations that haven't happened yet, calculating problems that might never arrive. Your body is exhausted, but your thoughts won't let you rest. Sound familiar? Here's something the ancient Stoics discovered that modern sleep science is only now confirming. The last thoughts you feed your mind before drifting off don't just disappear. They simmer, they cook, they become the foundation of how you'll experience tomorrow. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, taught that well-being is realized by small steps, but is truly no small thing. Those small steps. They begin in the quiet moments before sleep. We live in a world that glorifies hustle, noise, and constant motion. But the Stoics understood something we've forgotten. Real transformation happens in stillness. Not the forced stillness of meditation apps or breathing exercises you abandon after 3 days. I'm talking about the natural stillness that comes when you stop wrestling with reality and start working with it. Your mind is having a conversation with you right now. Maybe it's whispering about that text message you shouldn't have sent. Maybe it's shouting about bills, deadlines, or that doctor's appointment you keep postponing. The Stoics didn't believe in silencing these voices through distraction or denial. They believed in something radically different, listening to them, understanding them, then gently redirecting them toward wisdom. Seneca wrote letters to his friend Lucilius about examining each day before sleep, not as a judge condemning yourself, but as a student learning from experience. He said, "The spirit ought to be brought up for examination daily." But here's what makes this powerful. He wasn't promoting guilt or shame. He was promoting awareness. Because you cannot heal what you refuse to see, and you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge. Tonight is different from every other night you've experienced. Why? Because tonight, you're going to stop accidentally programming your subconscious with worry and start intentionally planting seeds of wisdom. While your body rests, your deeper mind will be working with these Stoic principles, integrating them, making them part of who you are. The 10 practices I'm sharing aren't band-aids for bad days. They're not motivational quotes that sound nice but change nothing. These are tools that survivors of shipwrecks used to stay sane. These are principles that prisoners used to maintain dignity. These are truths that emperors used to stay humble. They worked in ancient Rome, and they'll work in your bedroom tonight. Marcus Aurelius ruled the most powerful empire on earth while facing wars, plagues, and betrayal. Yet his private journal, now called Meditations, reveals a man who struggled with the same human challenges we face: disappointment, frustration, fatigue. The difference? He had a system for processing these experiences before they poisoned his spirit. That system is what you're about to learn. Sleep isn't just rest, it's reset. Your brain doesn't shut down, it reorganizes, consolidates memories, processes emotions, and prepares for tomorrow. What if instead of feeding it anxiety, comparison, and regret before bed, you fed it perspective, acceptance, and purpose? What if your last conscious thoughts became your first unconscious teachers? This isn't about becoming emotionless or pretending pain doesn't exist. The Stoics cried. They grieved. They felt deeply. But they refused to let temporary emotions become permanent residents in their minds. There's a difference between feeling sadness and choosing to rehearse it endlessly before sleep. There's a difference between acknowledging fear and inviting it to narrate your entire night. You're about to discover how people with far fewer resources, less knowledge, and harder lives than ours found genuine peace. Not fake peace that crumbles when tested, Real peace that holds steady even when everything around them falls apart. And it starts tonight, in your bed, in the dark, with these 10 Stoic principles working while you sleep. If you're ready to transform your nights starting today, declare it in the comments. My last thoughts build my tomorrow. Before we dive deep into these life-changing principles, hit that like button. Drop a comment, sharing just one word describing how you feel before bed most nights. Share this video with someone who's tired of sleepless nights filled with endless worry. Subscribe to this channel because we're creating a space where ancient wisdom meets modern struggles. Let's begin this journey. Number 1. Train your mind to befriend the darkness. Most people treat nighttime like an enemy. The moment the sun sets and responsibilities pause, anxiety rushes in to fill the void. But the Stoics had a completely different relationship with darkness and silence. They saw it as an opportunity, not a threat. Musonius Rufus, often called the Roman Socrates, taught his students that hardship is the training ground for virtue. But here's what he understood about night specifically. When external distractions fade, you finally meet yourself. The real you, not the version you perform for colleagues or family, the raw, unfiltered self. And that meeting, it terrifies most people. Think about what happens when you lie down. Suddenly, there's nowhere to run. No phone scrolling can truly quiet your mind. No television can drown out that inner voice. The darkness strips away your defenses, and you're left facing questions you've been avoiding all day. Am I doing enough? Am I being who I want to be? What if I fail? What if I already have? Here's the Stoic approach that changes everything. Stop running from these questions. Instead, before sleep, deliberately create a moment of honest conversation with yourself. Not harsh judgment, not cruel criticism. Honest observation, like a good friend pointing out that you have spinach in your teeth. Helpful, not hurtful. The practice is simple but profound. In the darkness, ask yourself 3 specific questions. What did I do today that aligned with who I want to become? Where did I react instead of respond? What's one small adjustment I can make tomorrow? Notice these aren't questions designed to shame you. They're designed to grow you. Epictetus was born into slavery, experienced physical disability, and faced circumstances most of us cannot imagine. Yet he developed an unshakable inner peace. His secret? He wrote, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Translation: be willing to look honestly at your mistakes without defending them. The darkness before sleep is where this honesty becomes possible. When you befriend the darkness, you stop fearing your own thoughts. You stop needing constant noise to avoid silence. You discover that the quiet isn't empty, it's full of insight, full of clarity, full of the wisdom your busy daytime mind drowns out. Your brain's default mode network, the part that activates during rest, is actually solving problems and making connections you can't force during active thinking. But it only works properly when you're not flooding it with worry. When you approach the dark, quiet moments before sleep as a gift rather than a punishment, you unlock this natural intelligence. Ancient Stoics didn't have electricity, smartphones, or endless entertainment options. When the sun set, they sat with themselves. They wrote. They reflected. They processed. This wasn't torture. It was maintenance. Like brushing your teeth or washing your face, examining your day was basic mental hygiene. Tonight, I want you to try something radical. 10 minutes before you plan to sleep, turn off every screen. Sit in dim light or darkness. Place your hand on your heart and simply acknowledge, today happened. I did my best with what I knew. Tomorrow, I'll try again. No elaborate ritual, no complicated meditation, just honest acknowledgement. This befriending of darkness does something unexpected. It removes the power that anxious thoughts have over you. When you stop treating nighttime as something to get through and start treating it as something valuable, the entire experience shifts. You're no longer fighting, you're learning. The Stoics believed that philosophy, love of wisdom, wasn't just intellectual exercise. It was therapeutic, it was healing. And the darkness? It's where the healing happens deepest, while you sleep, while your conscious defenses are down, while truth can finally reach the parts of you that need it most. Comment below the one thing you're releasing tonight. I release what I cannot control. Number 2. Practice the evening inventory without self-punishment. There's a beautiful difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection is looking at your day like a scientist examining data, curious, objective, seeking patterns. Rumination is playing your worst moments on repeat until they become your identity. The Stoics mastered reflection while completely avoiding the trap of rumination. Seneca practiced something revolutionary for his time and ours, the nightly review. But here's where most people get it wrong when they try this. They turn it into a highlight reel of failures, a courtroom where they're both prosecutor and defendant, endlessly arguing about every mistake. That's not what Seneca did. He examined his day the way a gardener walks through a garden, noting what's thriving, what needs attention, what to plant differently tomorrow. In his essay On Anger, Seneca describes his practice. When the light has been removed and my wife has fallen silent, aware of this habit that's now mine, I examine my entire day and go back over what I've done and said, hiding nothing from myself, passing nothing by. Notice what he's not doing. He's not beating himself up. He's not catastrophizing. He's simply reviewing with honesty. Here's why this matters for sleep specifically. Your mind will review your day whether you do it consciously or not. If you don't guide this process, your anxious brain will do it automatically, and it won't be kind. It'll magnify every awkward moment, replay every regret, imagine every terrible consequence. By taking control of this review before sleep, you're essentially telling your subconscious, I've got this handled. You can rest now. The practice works like this. Before lying down, take 5 minutes, just 5, to mentally walk through your day. Not every detail, just the moments that carry emotional weight. That conversation with your teenager, the decision you made at work, the way you reacted when someone cut you off in traffic. Look at each moment and ask, did I respond with wisdom or reactivity? Here's the crucial part that separates Stoic review from self-flagellation. When you notice you reacted poorly, you don't spiral into shame. Instead, you simply note it like a teacher grading papers. Interesting. When he criticized my idea, I got defensive instead of curious. Tomorrow I could pause and ask questions instead of explaining. That's it. Observation, lesson, move forward. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his personal journal, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall be meeting with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness. This sounds pessimistic until you understand his point. He wasn't being negative, he was being prepared. And at night, he'd review how he handled these inevitable challenges, learning from each encounter. The evening inventory creates something powerful for your sleeping mind: closure. Your brain desperately wants to close loops, finish stories, resolve tensions. When you consciously review your day and extract the lesson, you're giving your brain permission to file it away. The issue becomes resolved at a cognitive level, even if the external situation isn't perfect yet. Think of it like this. If you had a physical injury, you wouldn't just ignore it and hope it heals randomly while you sleep. You'd clean it, maybe apply medicine, bandage it properly. Your emotional and mental experiences need the same conscious care. The evening inventory is how you clean the wounds, apply wisdom, and let healing happen overnight. One warning: this practice only works if you approach yourself with compassion. The Stoics weren't gentle, fuzzy philosophers, but they understood that cruelty, even self-directed cruelty, doesn't produce wisdom. It produces shame, and shame makes you hide from truth rather than learn from it. Epictetus taught his students, don't explain your philosophy, embody it. The evening inventory isn't about explaining to yourself why you messed up. It's about embodying the commitment to grow. You look, you learn, you adjust, you sleep. You wake up slightly wiser than yesterday. Tonight, grab a mental notepad. Not a physical journal. This is an internal practice. Review your day in 3 categories: moments you're genuinely proud of, moments that didn't reflect your values, and moments where you could choose differently tomorrow. Spend 30 seconds on each category. That's it. No drama, no therapy session, just honest inventory. The gift you're giving yourself is profound. You're training your sleeping mind to process experiences constructively rather than destructively. You're converting today's raw material into tomorrow's wisdom. And you're doing it all before your head hits the pillow, so your actual sleep can be about restoration, not rehearsal. If you've been too hard on yourself, it's time to change that. Type, I review with grace, then rest. Number 3, release the imaginary audience judging you. Right now, as you prepare for sleep, there's probably a committee meeting happening in your mind. All the people you imagine are judging you: your boss, your neighbor, your high school friend who seems perfect on social media, your own younger self, disappointed in who you've become. This invisible audience takes up enormous mental real estate, especially in the vulnerable hours before sleep. The Stoics had a fascinating perspective on reputation and judgment. They cared deeply about virtue, but almost not at all about opinion. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that sounds harsh, but is actually liberating. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. Read that again slowly. You love yourself supposedly, yet you trust strangers' opinions more than your own assessment. You lie awake, worried about what someone thinks of your outfit, your parenting, your career choices, your life decisions. People who are probably not thinking about you at all because they're too busy worrying about who's judging them. Here's the uncomfortable truth that will set you free tonight. Most people aren't thinking about you, not because you don't matter, but because they're starring in their own mental movies where they're the main character. That embarrassing thing you said 3 weeks ago that keeps you awake, they forgot it 3 minutes after it happened. That social media post you agonized over, half the people who saw it don't even remember it. Epictetus taught something radical about external judgment. He said that when someone insults you or criticizes you, they're not actually commenting on you. They're revealing their own values and perceptions. If someone calls you lazy, that's their interpretation filtered through their beliefs about what productivity looks like. It literally tells you more about them than about you. Before sleep, the imaginary audience becomes especially loud because your defenses are down. During the day, you can distract yourself from these voices, but at night, they show up like uninvited guests at a party. The Stoic solution isn't to argue with them or prove them wrong. It's to simply revoke their invitation to your mental space. Try this tonight. Identify one person whose imagined judgment has been bothering you. Picture them clearly. Now recognize this truth. The version of them judging you in your mind isn't even real. It's your creation, your projection, your fear wearing their face. The real person is probably at home worrying about their own problems, not critiquing your choices. Seneca spent time advising emperors and wealthy Romans who were obsessed with reputation. He told them, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Your worth isn't determined by applause or approval. It's built through how you handle challenges when nobody's watching, how you treat yourself when you stumble, how you show up when it would be easier to hide. The practice for tonight is powerful in its simplicity. Before lying down, say this quietly to yourself. I release everyone else's scorecards. I keep only my own compass, your internal sense of right and wrong, your values, your integrity. That's what matters. Everyone else's scorecard is based on incomplete information, personal biases, and projections that have nothing to do with your real journey. This doesn't mean you stop caring about being a good person. It means you stop outsourcing your self-worth to people who don't have the full picture of your life. You stop performing for an audience that exists mainly in your imagination. You start answering to the one person who will be with you every moment of your life, yourself. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire where literally millions had opinions about his decisions. Yet he wrote for himself, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Tonight, you're retreating not from responsibility, but from the exhausting performance of trying to manage everyone's perception of you. When you release the imaginary audience, something miraculous happens. The mental energy you've been spending on defending yourself, explaining yourself, or proving yourself becomes available for actual rest. Your nervous system, which has been on high alert trying to protect your reputation, finally gets the message, we're safe, we're enough. We can rest now. Who's been living rent-free in your head? Release them now and comment, I answer only to my integrity. Number 4, accept that tomorrow is built on uncertainty, not guarantees. You know what keeps more people awake than anything else? The desperate need to know how things will turn out. Will the meeting go well? Will they text back? Will the test results be okay? Will the money come through? Your mind spins endless scenarios, trying to predict, control, and guarantee outcomes that haven't happened yet. The Stoics had a wildly different approach to uncertainty. They didn't fight it. They partnered with it. Seneca wrote something that sounds almost absurd at first. The whole future lies in uncertainty. Live immediately. Think about what he's really saying. You're sacrificing your present peace for a future you cannot control or predict. You're lying in bed right now, this moment, unable to rest because you're mentally living in tomorrow, next week, next year, none of which actually exist yet. Here's what's happening in your brain when you obsess about future outcomes. Your mind mistakes planning for preparation. You think if you just worry enough, imagine enough scenarios, rehearse enough conversations, you'll somehow be ready for whatever comes. But that's not preparation. That's exhaustion disguised as productivity. Real preparation is doing what you can with what you have right now, then releasing attachment to specific outcomes. The Stoic philosopher Chrysippus used an analogy that's perfect for understanding this. He compared life to a dog tied to a moving cart. The dog has two choices: resist and get dragged painfully, or run alongside the cart with dignity. The cart, fate, circumstances, the unfolding of events, moves regardless. Your choice is only about how you move with it. This doesn't mean you stop planning or setting goals. Marcus Aurelius planned military campaigns. Seneca advised on political strategy. They weren't passive people waiting for life to happen, but they understood something crucial. You can plan your actions without demanding certainty about results. You can prepare without pretending you control outcomes. Tonight, your mind probably has a list of what-ifs ready to deploy the moment things get quiet. What if I lose my job? What if they don't forgive me? What if my health declines? What if I've made the wrong choice? Here's the Stoic response that seems simple but changes everything. Maybe. And if it happens, I'll handle it then. Not "it won't happen," that's denial. Not "I'll prevent it," that's false control. Just "if it happens, I'll handle it then." This acknowledgement that you are capable of responding to whatever comes is more powerful than any amount of worry-fueled mental rehearsal. Epictetus was asked by his students how to handle fear of future hardship. His response: "Don't demand that events happen as you would wish them to. Instead, wish that events happen as they do, and you will go on well." This sounds like giving up until you realize what he's actually teaching. It's about energy management. Fighting reality takes enormous energy. Accepting and adapting to reality frees that energy for actual problem solving. The practice for tonight is deceptively simple. When a worry about tomorrow surfaces, acknowledge it completely. Don't suppress it. Don't argue with it. Just say internally, "Yes, that's uncertain." And uncertainty is part of being alive. I've handled uncertain situations before. I'll handle this one too if it comes. Then gently bring your attention back to this moment. The temperature of your room, the texture of your sheets, the rhythm of your breathing. This isn't positive thinking. This is realistic thinking. The Stoics weren't optimists or pessimists. They were practitioners of what's called negative visualization. They'd imagine worst-case scenarios not to torture themselves, but to realize they could survive them. Seneca practiced poverty regularly to remind himself he could handle it if fortune changed. Not because he wanted poverty, but because removing the fear of it gave him freedom. When you accept uncertainty as the fabric of existence rather than a problem to solve, your whole relationship with sleep transforms. You stop treating bedtime as the moment when your mind must solve everything. You start treating it as the moment when you acknowledge today is complete, tomorrow is unwritten, and rest is what bridges them. The irony is perfect. The more you demand certainty, the less peace you have. The more you accept uncertainty, the more capable you become of handling whatever actually arrives. Your sleeping mind doesn't need guarantees. It needs permission to stop the exhausting work of trying to predict and control the uncontrollable. Let go of needing to know everything right now. Drop this below. I trust myself with uncertainty. Number 5. Separate your worth from your productivity. There's a voice that probably speaks up right as you're about to sleep. It sounds like this: "You didn't do enough today. You should have accomplished more. Everyone else is ahead of you. You're wasting your life." This voice has convinced millions of people that their value as a human being is measured by their output. The Stoics would call this exactly what it is: complete nonsense. Marcus Aurelius was literally the Emperor of Rome, arguably the most powerful and productive person on earth during his reign. Yet he wrote this in his private journal: "At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. What do I have to complain of if I'm going to do what I was born for?" Notice what's absent from his words: achievement, status, productivity metrics. He defines his purpose simply as being human, showing up, doing his best, being present. Our culture has done something toxic. It's conflated being productive with being valuable. It's told you that rest is earned only after achievement, that sleep is something you deserve only if you've checked enough boxes, that your worth depends on your output. This is not ancient wisdom. This is modern insanity. Seneca observed wealthy Romans who couldn't sleep because they were always calculating, always strategizing, always trying to accumulate more. He wrote to his friend Lucilius, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." The poverty he's describing isn't financial, it's spiritual. It's the poverty of believing you're never enough until you achieve something else. Here's what happens when you tie your worth to productivity. You create an impossible standard that steals your peace. Did you have a productive day? Great. But tomorrow you need to be even more productive, or you'll feel like you're falling behind. Did you have an unproductive day? Terrible. Now you're worthless and need to compensate tomorrow. It's a rigged game where you always lose. The Stoics separated these concepts completely. Virtue, being a good person, had nothing to do with external achievement. A slave could be virtuous. A beggar could be wise. An emperor could be morally bankrupt despite ruling the world. Your character, your integrity, your humanity, these things exist independent of what you produce. Tonight, I want you to practice something revolutionary. As you prepare for sleep, list 3 things that have nothing to do with productivity, but everything to do with your worth as a person. Maybe you were patient with someone who frustrated you. Maybe you noticed something beautiful. Maybe you simply continued existing through a hard day. These aren't achievements, they're evidence of your humanity. Epictetus taught that we're not just rational beings, we're social beings designed for connection and contribution. But contribution doesn't mean constant production. Sometimes your contribution is simply not adding more harm to the world. Sometimes it's offering a kind word. Sometimes it's letting yourself rest so you have capacity tomorrow. Your body doesn't care about your to-do list. It needs sleep to repair cells, consolidate memories, regulate hormones, and maintain health. When you deny yourself rest because you didn't earn it, you're essentially punishing your body for your mind's arbitrary standards. That's not discipline, that's self-sabotage. There's a beautiful Stoic practice called the view from above. Marcus Aurelius would imagine zooming out from his immediate concerns to see the vastness of the empire, the world, the cosmos. From that perspective, his daily productivity metrics seemed absurdly small. The universe doesn't care if you answered all your emails. Time doesn't speed up because you finished your project. Your worth as a conscious being exists independent of your output. This doesn't mean you become lazy or stop pursuing goals. It means you stop letting achievement define your right to rest. You stop treating sleep as a reward for productivity and start treating it as a requirement for being human. Even Marcus Aurelius, with an empire depending on him, gave himself permission to sleep. The practice tonight. Before closing your eyes, place your hand over your heart and say this truth: I am valuable because I exist, not because of what I produce. My worth isn't earned, it's inherent. I give myself permission to rest. Feel how different that is from, I'll sleep when I've earned it. If you're exhausted from proving your worth, reclaim your peace and write, my worth isn't earned through productivity. Number 6, transform regret into fuel, not poison. Regret is probably one of the most frequent visitors to your bedtime thoughts. That conversation from 5 years ago, that opportunity you didn't take, that relationship you mishandled, that version of yourself you wish you'd been. Regret whispers the cruelest lie. You've ruined everything and it's too late to fix it. The Stoics understood regret intimately, but they refused to let it become a life sentence. Epictetus had every reason to drown in regret. Born into slavery, his leg permanently damaged by his master, denied basic freedoms most people take for granted. Yet he developed a philosophy that transformed suffering into strength. He taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you use what happens to you. Notice he didn't say how you feel about it. He said how you use it. Regret in Stoic hands becomes raw material for wisdom. Here's the truth about regret that changes everything. You cannot undo the past, but you can absolutely redefine its meaning. Right now, your regrets are stories you tell yourself about failure and loss. What if those same experiences were actually stories about growth, lessons, and redirection? Same facts, completely different narrative. Think about this. The person you regret being no longer exists. You're literally not the same person who made that mistake. Your cells have regenerated. Your neural pathways have changed. Your knowledge has expanded. You're carrying regret for someone who is essentially a stranger, a past version of you who did their best with the consciousness they had at that moment. Marcus Aurelius wrote something profound about change. Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight. He's not saying loss doesn't hurt. He's saying that loss, mistakes, and regret are part of the natural process of becoming. You cannot grow into someone new without leaving behind who you were. That leaving behind, it often feels like regret. The Stoic practice with regret isn't suppression or rationalization. It's extraction. You mine your regrets for the wisdom they contain, then you let the rest go. Seneca did this nightly. He'd review his mistakes not to punish himself, but to ask, what does this teach me about myself, about others, about life? The regret became tuition for a better tomorrow. Tonight, try this. Choose one regret that's been haunting you before sleep. Instead of replaying it like a horror movie, ask it 3 questions. What was I trying to protect or pursue with that choice? What didn't I understand then that I understand now? How has this experience actually shaped me into someone with more compassion or wisdom? These questions transform regret from poison into fuel. Here's what most people don't realize about regret. It proves you've evolved. If you look back and don't cringe at some past choices, you haven't grown. The fact that you can see your mistakes means you're no longer operating from that level of consciousness. That's not failure. That's progress. The person you were needed to make those mistakes, to become the person you are. Epictetus had a student who was paralyzed by regret over a major life decision. Epictetus told him something shocking. You wanted certainty where certainty doesn't exist. You made the best guess you could with incomplete information. Now you have better information, so use it. He wasn't dismissing the student's pain. He was refusing to let regret become an identity. Your sleeping mind doesn't need to carry regret like cargo. It needs to process regret like compost, breaking it down into nutrients for new growth. When you lie down tonight carrying yesterday's mistakes like stones in your pockets, you're exhausting yourself before sleep even begins. But when you extract the lesson and release the shame, those stones become stepping stones. There's a powerful Stoic distinction between remorse and regret. Remorse says, I wish I'd chosen differently, and I commit to choosing better. Regret says, I'm terrible, and this proves it. One leads to growth, the other leads to paralysis. Before sleep, practice remorse, not regret. Acknowledge what you'd do differently, commit to doing better, then let it go. The practice is simple but liberating. Think of your biggest recent regret. Say out loud or internally, I see what I could have done differently. I extract this wisdom. Name the lesson. I release the shame. I carry only the growth. Then physically exhale, imagining the shame leaving your body with your breath. Marcus Aurelius faced regrets that affected entire nations, military decisions, political alliances, family choices. Yet he found peace each night by practicing what he called the art of acquiescence, accepting what's already happened while committing to wiser choices moving forward. Not resignation, but realistic acknowledgement combined with intentional growth. Tonight, your regrets don't need to be courtroom evidence against you. They can be classroom material for your evolution. The Stoics didn't believe in erasing the past. They believed in learning from it so thoroughly that even mistakes become valuable. Your regrets brought you here, to this moment, seeking wisdom. That's not failure. That's transformation in progress. What regret are you turning into wisdom tonight? Share this commitment. Regrets are lessons, not life sentences. Number 7. Practice voluntary discomfort to appreciate what you have. Here's something that sounds completely backwards. The Stoics deliberately made themselves uncomfortable to sleep better and live happier. They'd practice poverty, skip meals voluntarily, sleep on hard surfaces, endure cold, not as punishment, but as training. Seneca would periodically live like the poorest citizen, eating simple food and wearing rough clothes. His reason? Set aside a certain number of days during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare. Then you'll ask yourself, is this the condition I feared? Your mind right now is probably filled with complaints. The mattress isn't comfortable enough. The room is too hot or cold. Tomorrow's schedule is too demanding. Your life isn't what you imagined. These aren't observations. They're judgments that rob you of peace. The Stoics discovered that gratitude isn't something you feel. It's something you practice by deliberately experiencing its opposite. Marcus Aurelius slept in military camps on hard ground during years-long campaigns. He could have demanded luxury. He was the emperor. Instead, he wrote, "Do not indulge in dreams of having what you have not, but reckon up the chief of the blessings you do possess, and then thankfully remember how you would crave for them if they were not yours." He practiced discomfort to remember comfort was a gift, not a right. Here's what happens when everything is always comfortable. You become incapable of handling when it's not. Your resilience atrophies like an unused muscle. Then, when life inevitably serves discomfort, and it will, you're devastated. But when you voluntarily practice small discomforts, you're training your mind to stay calm when involuntary discomfort arrives. Tonight, before you settle into your comfortable bed, try this Stoic exercise. Spend 3 minutes sitting on the floor, not as meditation, just sitting, feeling the hardness, experiencing slight physical discomfort. Then when you get into bed, notice the contrast. Feel the softness you usually take for granted. That's not just comfort. That's gratitude generated through contrast. Epictetus taught his students to imagine losing everything they valued. Not to be morbid, but to recognize that nothing is permanent, nothing is guaranteed, and everything you have right now is temporary fortune. He said, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well." The modern world has sold you a dangerous lie, that comfort equals happiness. So you chase softer beds, better temperature control, perfect conditions. But happiness research shows the opposite. People who can handle discomfort are generally happier than those who can't. Because discomfort is inevitable and your relationship with it determines your quality of life. Here's a practice Seneca used that you can adapt for tonight. Before sleep, imagine yourself without one thing you currently have. Not catastrophically, just one thing. Your comfortable home, your reliable car, your good health, your smartphone. Imagine living without it. Really feel what that would be like. Then open your eyes and realize you have it, right now. This isn't imagination, this is your actual life. That shift from imagined lack to recognized abundance creates genuine gratitude. The Stoics weren't masochists seeking suffering. They were trainers building mental strength. Like athletes who practice in harsh conditions so competitions feel easier, they practiced discomfort so regular life felt more manageable. Musonius Rufus, Epictetus's teacher, said, "We should discipline both the body and mind with toil and hardship, preparing ourselves to endure what may come." Your sleeping mind needs to trust that you can handle difficulties. When you practice voluntary discomfort, even in small ways, you're sending a message to your nervous system. We're capable, we're resilient. We don't need perfect conditions to be okay. That message allows deeper rest because your brain isn't in constant protection mode trying to maintain ideal circumstances. This doesn't mean rejecting comfort. It means not depending on it for your peace. There's a massive difference between enjoying a comfortable bed and needing one to function, between appreciating good health and falling apart when you get sick, between liking convenience and becoming helpless without it. Tonight's practice: choose one small comfort you usually demand and skip it. Maybe sleep without your extra pillow. Maybe keep the room slightly cooler than you prefer. Maybe skip your usual bedtime snack. Notice the discomfort without dramatizing it. Then notice you're okay, you're capable. And tomorrow, when comfort returns, you'll appreciate it rather than expect it. The Stoics found that people who had experienced real hardship often slept better than those who'd always had comfort. Why? Because they knew they could survive difficulty. Their peace didn't depend on circumstances being perfect. Your practice of voluntary discomfort trains the same capability. Tell me one comfort you're willing to skip tonight, then affirm, small discomforts build great strength. Number 8. Redefine success as internal alignment, not external validation. You're lying in bed replaying your day, and there's a scorecard running in your mind. Did I impress them? Did I get the recognition I deserved? Did I move forward in ways people can see? This invisible scorecard is stealing your sleep because it measures success by standards you'll never fully control. The Stoics had a radically different definition of success that made sleep infinitely easier. Cato the Younger was a Roman senator known for his unwavering integrity. He lost most political battles. He was mocked, opposed, and eventually defeated. By external measures, he failed. Yet Seneca wrote about him with reverence. Cato did not survive freedom, nor freedom Cato. Cato's success wasn't winning votes. It was maintaining his principles under impossible pressure. That's the Stoic redefinition. Success is alignment between your values and your actions, regardless of outcome. Think about how you currently measure a successful day. Probably by what you accomplished, how others responded, what you gained or avoided losing. These metrics place your peace in external hands. Someone doesn't respond to your text? Unsuccessful day. Boss doesn't notice your work? Failed. Didn't hit your goal? Worthless. You're essentially giving your sleep quality to factors outside your control. Marcus Aurelius wrote something that sounds simple, but transforms everything. You could be good today, but instead you choose tomorrow. He's pointing at the gap between knowing what's right and doing what's right. Success, in Stoic terms, is closing that gap. Did you treat someone with patience when you felt frustrated? Success. Did you do your work with care even though nobody was watching? Success. Did you stay honest when lying was easier? Success. Epictetus was brutal about external validation. He taught, if you wish to be good, first believe that you are bad. Not to create shame, but to recognize that seeking external approval means you've outsourced your self-assessment. You're letting people who don't know your struggles, your context, your intentions, define whether you're succeeding. That's not humility, that's abandonment of self-authority. Here's tonight's practice that will change your relationship with success and sleep. Before lying down, ask yourself one question. Did I today act in ways that reflect who I want to become? Not, did I achieve outcomes I wanted? Or, did people approve of me? Just, did your actions align with your values? If yes, you succeeded. If no, you know what to adjust tomorrow. Either way, the assessment is complete, and you can rest. The beauty of this redefinition is that success becomes entirely within your control. You cannot control whether you get promoted, whether your project succeeds, whether people recognize your efforts, but you can control whether you show up with integrity, effort, and care. You can control whether your actions match your values. That's the only scoreboard that matters before sleep. Seneca observed wealthy Romans who achieved everything society defined as success, power, money, fame, yet couldn't sleep peacefully. He wrote, "No person has the power to have everything they want, but it is in their power not to want what they don't have." The sleepless, successful people were chasing external validation that could never satisfy because it could always be lost or increased. The internally aligned person sleeps regardless of external conditions. There's a profound question the Stoics asked that modern culture avoids. If nobody ever knew about your achievements, would you still pursue them? If the answer is no, you're not actually pursuing the thing, you're pursuing the recognition. And recognition is quicksand. The more you chase it, the deeper you sink into dependence on others' opinions. Tonight, imagine a scenario where none of your external achievements matter. No job title, no bank account, no followers, no awards, just you and your character. In that stripped-down version, who are you? How did you treat people today? Did you act with courage when it mattered? Did you show up even when you didn't feel like it? Those questions reveal real success. Marcus Aurelius had ultimate external success, literally ruling an empire. Yet his journal reveals a man constantly checking internal alignment. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. He didn't write about conquests or political victories. He wrote about patience, honesty, effort, and integrity. Those were his measures of a day well lived. The practice is this: create your own success metrics based entirely on factors within your control. Not close the sale, but present with genuine care for solving their problem. Not get promoted, but bring full effort and skill to every task. Not become famous, but create value that helps others. When success depends on your choices rather than others' responses, you take back your peace. Here's what happens when you redefine success this way. You stop going to bed feeling like a failure when external things didn't align. You stop waking up anxious about whether today will finally bring the validation you're chasing. You start sleeping like someone who knows that regardless of outcomes, they showed up as their best self. That's a different quality of rest entirely. The Stoics weren't saying external achievement doesn't matter. They were saying it matters far less than internal integrity, because achievements can be taken away by circumstances outside your control. But your character, your effort, your alignment between values and actions, that's yours. Nobody can take it, and nobody needs to validate it. Stop chasing validation and claim this truth in the comments. My integrity defines my success. Number 9. Treat each day as complete, not as preparation for tomorrow. There's a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from living every day as a rehearsal for a future that never quite arrives. You tell yourself, I'll rest when the project is done. I'll relax when I get that promotion. I'll truly live when I have more money, more time, more certainty. Meanwhile, today slips through your fingers unlived, just a stepping stone to a tomorrow that keeps moving further away. The Stoics saw this trap clearly and offered a way out. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present." But he didn't mean ignore the future or avoid planning. He meant something more nuanced. Treat today as a complete experience, not merely as infrastructure for tomorrow. Each day is both preparation and destination, both journey and arrival. When you lie down tonight, today should feel finished, not like an incomplete chapter waiting for tomorrow's validation. Seneca watched people in Rome postpone their lives indefinitely. They worked for retirement. They saved joy for special occasions. They treated every present moment as currency to spend on future happiness. He wrote with frustration, "While we wait for life, life passes." That sentence should hit you hard because it's probably describing your relationship with today. You're waiting for the right conditions to actually live, meanwhile consuming your finite days in preparation mode. Here's the shift that changes everything about how you sleep. Today was not a waste just because it didn't produce dramatic results. Today had value simply because you experienced it. You breathed, you noticed things, you moved through time with consciousness. Even if nothing productive happened, you participated in existence. That's not nothing, that's everything. Epictetus taught students who were constantly worried about their future careers, relationships, and security. He'd ask them, "What's happening right now that's actually bad?" Usually nothing. The present moment was fine. The suffering came from mental time travel to feared futures. He'd bring them back. This moment, right now, are you okay? Usually, yes. That's the practice, returning to the sufficiency of now. Tonight's practice is both simple and profound. Before sleep, complete today mentally. Not in the sense of accomplishing everything you wanted, but in the sense of acknowledging today happened. It was what it was. Some moments were good, some were difficult, some were ordinary. All of them were real, all of them counted. Today is now complete, not because it was perfect, but because it's over and cannot be relived. This completion practice does something powerful for sleep. It signals to your brain that today's business is finished. You're not carrying it into tomorrow. You're not keeping the books open for revision. Today lived. Today ended. Now rest comes. Then tomorrow will be its own complete experience. Each day is a full circle, not a fragment of some larger unfinished story. Marcus Aurelius knew he might die any day, through assassination, battle, or illness. So he developed a practice of treating each day as potentially his last, not morbidly, but as a way to ensure he didn't postpone what mattered. He asked himself each evening, if this was my final day, would I have regrets about how I spent it? Not whether he achieved enough, but whether he lived it fully. That question transforms your nights. Did I treat today like it mattered? Did I show up? Did I notice beauty? Did I connect with people? Did I bring my attention to what I was doing? Those questions measure whether you lived today or merely existed through it as preparation for tomorrow. When you've lived the day fully, you sleep differently, satisfied, not because everything went well, but because you were fully present. Here's what most people don't understand. Tomorrow will never feel like the day you've been preparing for. There will always be another project, another goal, another milestone. If you're waiting for arrival before you rest peacefully, you'll wait forever. The Stoic insight is that arrival is available right now, not through achieving everything, but through treating this day as complete and valuable in itself. Seneca practiced what he called life as a complete work. Instead of seeing life as a series of disconnected days leading somewhere, he saw each day as containing the whole meaning of existence. Today you loved or didn't. Today you were courageous or weren't. Today you lived with awareness or sleepwalked. Each day is the whole game, not practice for the real thing later. The practice tonight. Spend 2 minutes reviewing today, not as incomplete business, but as a finished chapter. What happened, happened. What you did, you did. What you experienced. It's complete, not perfect, complete. There's a massive difference. Perfectionism keeps books open forever. Completion allows them to close, so rest becomes possible. When you treat today as complete, you're essentially telling your mind, we don't need to solve this tonight. Today is done. Tomorrow will be its own day, with its own completeness. Right now, we rest. That permission to close today's chapter is the permission your nervous system needs to actually restore itself during sleep. If today felt incomplete, give yourself permission to close the chapter. Type, "Today is complete as it is." Number 10. Build a philosophy of enough, not a philosophy of more. The final principle is the one that ties everything together and might be the hardest to embrace in a culture that worships more. More money, more success, more followers, more achievements, more. The Stoics had a controversial position. They believed in enough, not as settling or giving up, but as the foundation of all peace. If you don't know what enough looks like, you'll never rest, because there's always more to chase. Seneca was one of the wealthiest men in Rome, yet he wrote extensively about the poverty of those who always need more. It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor, he observed. He watched people with vast fortunes unable to sleep because they feared losing wealth or obsessed over gaining more. Their bank accounts were full, but their souls were bankrupt because they'd never defined enough. Think about your own relationship with enough. When will you have enough money to stop worrying? Enough success to feel secure? Enough recognition to feel valued? For most people, the answer keeps moving. You think $10,000 saved will bring peace, but when you get it, suddenly you need $50,000. You think one promotion will satisfy you, but you get it and immediately want the next one. The goalpost constantly moves because you haven't actually defined what enough means. Marcus Aurelius, who controlled the wealth of an empire, wrote, "Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking." He wasn't romanticizing poverty. He was pointing at a truth. If your happiness depends on accumulating more external things, you're building on sand. The foundation of peace is internal sufficiency, not external abundance. Epictetus taught something that sounds extreme. Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants. In modern terms, there are two paths to having enough: acquire more or want less. Our culture pushes only the first path, which is exhausting and endless. The Stoics walked the second path, which requires nothing but a shift in perspective. Tonight, before you sleep, try this revolutionary practice. Define your enough, not your ideal or your dream or what you'd want if you won the lottery. Your enough. What amount of money would be genuinely sufficient? What level of health would be acceptable? What kind of relationships would be adequate? What achievements would be satisfying? Get specific. Write mental numbers and descriptions. Here's what happens when you define enough. You create a finish line. Right now, you're running a race with no end, which is why you can't rest. You're chasing more without knowing when you can stop chasing. But when you define enough and realize you either have it or you're close to it, something releases. The desperation eases. The sleep deepens. The Stoics weren't advocating for no ambition. They were advocating for ambition that serves your life rather than consuming it. Marcus Aurelius had ambitions for Rome's prosperity and security, but he'd defined what was enough for himself personally: basic health, basic relationships, opportunity to think and contribute. He didn't need monuments or legendary status to sleep peacefully. Seneca did an exercise where he'd periodically practice living with his minimum: simple food, rough clothes, basic shelter. He'd ask, "Is this the condition I feared?" Usually he discovered the minimum was fine. Uncomfortable perhaps, but survivable. This practice broke the fear that drove his need for more. When you know you can handle having less, you stop desperately chasing more. Here's a question that reveals everything. If you had exactly what you have right now for the rest of your life, same income, same home, same relationships, same body, same circumstances, could you be genuinely content? If the answer is no, you're in trouble, because more will never satisfy you. You'll get more and still feel insufficient because the problem isn't what you have, it's your relationship with enough. The practice tonight is radical acceptance of current sufficiency. Look at what you have right now: shelter, food, breath, consciousness, some form of safety, some degree of health, some connections to others. By historical standards, by global standards, possibly even by your own past standards, you have enough of the basics. Not everything you want, but enough of what you need. Can you acknowledge that? This doesn't mean you stop working toward goals. It means you stop tying your peace to achieving them. You pursue improvement from a place of sufficiency rather than desperation. You work toward more without needing it for your worth. That subtle shift, from desperate reaching to purposeful building, changes everything about your sleep quality. Marcus Aurelius faced enormous pressures: wars, plagues, betrayals, political chaos. Yet he found peace by constantly returning to enough. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. Your estimate of what you need, that's the lever. Adjust it to reality, and sleep becomes possible. What would change if you decided you already have enough? Comment below. I have enough. I am enough. Here we are. You've just received 10 Stoic principles that emperors, slaves, philosophers, and ordinary people have used for over 2,000 years to find peace before sleep. Not because their lives were easy, but because their minds were trained. Tonight, you have everything you need to sleep differently. Not just tonight, every night for the rest of your life. Let's remember what we've covered, because these aren't just ideas, they're practices. You learn to befriend darkness instead of fearing it, to review your day without punishing yourself, to release the imaginary audience judging you, to accept uncertainty as part of being alive, to separate your worth from your productivity, to transform regret into fuel, to practice discomfort to build gratitude, to redefine success as internal alignment, to treat today as complete, and to build a philosophy of enough. These principles work while you sleep because you're planting them in your conscious mind. And your subconscious does the real work during rest. Your sleeping brain will process what you've learned tonight. It'll start reorganizing your thoughts, your reactions, your entire approach to life, not magically, but naturally, because you've given it better material to work with. The Stoics didn't promise that life would be easy if you followed their philosophy. They promised something better, that you could be okay regardless of what life brought. That peace wasn't something external you had to find. It was something internal you had to build. And building happens one night at a time, one practice at a time, one choice at a time. Seneca wrote near the end of his life, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." Tonight is the beginning of your separate life. Tomorrow night will be another. Each one is an opportunity to practice what you've learned, to sleep more peacefully, to wake up more capable. Your ancestors survived wars, famines, plagues, and hardships we can barely imagine. You carry their resilience in your very existence. The Stoic wisdom they used is now yours. Use it tonight. Use it every night. And watch how differently you move through your days when your nights are built on wisdom instead of worry. Thank you for being here, for staying until the end, for taking your peace seriously enough to invest this time. Now, hit that like button if this resonated with you. Drop a comment sharing which principle you're practicing tonight. Share this video with someone who needs better sleep and deeper peace. And subscribe to this channel, because we're just getting started building this community of people who refuse to let chaos steal their calm. Sleep well tonight. You've earned it not through productivity, but through your humanity. You're enough. This moment is enough. Rest is yours. I want you to drop this final affirmation in the comments. I sleep with Stoic wisdom, and I wake transformed. Good night.